All right, how's it going, everyone? My name is lee-tyson, and welcome to the Angle Creation Masterclass, a masterclass that is designed to teach you how to eliminate competition, how to unlock new customer segments, and how to attract pre-sold customers in competitive niches. If I had to credit one thing out of my entire career now, after selling over $62 million worth of info products, of online courses, and coaching and consulting programs, it would be this. Because the courses and coaching programs and products that I've sold have been in some of the most cutthroat and competitive niches online. Things like how to make money, how to invest, how to start a business, how to grow a business, all things where you are competing with people that also have a very strong digital marketing background, which usually means it's very difficult to stand out. And that is really what I'm going to be going over inside of this masterclass, is how to create basically a category of one, how to stand out in a niche or in an industry that has been in a lot of ways kind of done to death. If there are a lot of people that all have the same claims as you, that have similar products as you, or just have a similar promise as you, whether it's how to make money, how to grow a business, how to invest, how to lose weight, how to be happy, how to find a partner. No matter what it is, I'm going to be going over in this masterclass how you can stand out among the crowd using this skill that I learned called angle creation, which, like I said, the very first, or I guess it technically wasn't the first, I guess the second big offer that I had that actually used a very unique angle that I'm very proud to have created. It did over $50 million in top line cash collected in what a lot of people would call is a saturated market, a market that has already been sold before. I'll be honest, this was not like a brand new product. There have definitely been versions of this product and versions of this offer that have been sold before. But despite that, it did incredibly well. You can see from our return on ad spend, we were very, very profitable. And generated close to 1 million leads inside of this niche and almost 145,000 high-ticket sales calls, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of that. I've taught this framework to quite a few of my high-level clients. Many of them now do upwards of 7 and 8 figures every single year. One of the top clients that I have who wished to remain anonymous, he was actually able to start a brand new offer, a brand new info product in a niche and scale it to over $10,000 a day inside of just 2 months and getting started. And just like the first example, like I said, he was not selling a brand new product. The thing that he was selling was something that already there were competitors that were advertising on Facebook, on Google, and Instagram. Essentially the exact same thing, the exact same product, the exact same offer, and he needed to find a way to stand out because he was getting started basically completely from scratch, no testimonials, no like massive success stories, and obviously he was entering into a category that already had some big players in it. So this is a testament, in my opinion, to the skill of angle creation, that you can be going up against some of the big dogs. You can be going against people that already have years of experience. They already have hundreds of testimonials. But if you get this right, if you have a very strong angle, you can outwork, you can scale a lot of the competitors that are in your industry, stand out in a very competitive category, and obviously reap the lion's share of the profits. And most recently, I actually have a brand new offer that I've been working on. I've been sharing kind of behind the scenes with some of the private clients that I work with. Is a brand new offer that is very similar to things that I've sold in the past, but by using a brand new angle on it, something that no one had ever seen before, something that not really anyone was selling. This offer was able to scale to over $400,000 in revenue in the very first 6 weeks. You can see at the start of June 2024, it was starting at completely from zero. And then around here, like third week of June, so that's within literally 3 weeks, we were hitting $28,000 days, which I'm pretty proud of. Just because, obviously this is a great product, deserves to be in the hands of as many people as possible. And hopefully that's the case for you. Whether you are a business owner that wants to get your product and service and your offer in the hands of more potential customers, or if you're a marketer, you're a consultant, you're an agency owner, you want to help your clients do the same, I promise you this masterclass is going to help you do that. The very first thing I kind of want to go over, just because I want to make sure we're on the same page before we get into the advanced, technical, sexy stuff that's really going to make you a lot of money. The first foundational thing I want to clarify is what exactly is an angle? What is this angle creation skill that I'm going to be talking about? Well, an angle is quite simply just the way that you frame your offer, your product or service to potential customers, usually at the very start of your sales process. So an angle is important because if you're advertising on social media, whether you're paying for it or you're just posting organically, you're posting reels on Instagram, you're posting TikToks, whatever it might happen to be, It's very, very important in the day and era that we live in that immediately, right out of the gate, the very first thing that someone sees about you is that you are different. You're not saying the exact same things that 10 other gurus in the make money or the weight loss or the relationship space are all saying, but immediately you are being perceived as different. And 100% this comes down to, like it says here, the way that you frame your offer or your product or your service to potential customers. And it's important that you do this very early on. If you're running paid traffic on Facebook or on YouTube, it's very important that the angle that you are talking about is implicitly spoken out, it's implicitly implied within ideally the first 10 seconds of your ads. People also call this a hook. I know Michael Masterson, Mark Ford, he calls it a lead. There's a really great book on this topic. It's called Great Leads. A lot of people also call it kind of the big idea. What is the big idea in your marketing or the big idea in your advertising campaigns? The really cool thing about this, like I showed you in the third case study of an offer that I was able to take to $400,000 in as little as 6 weeks, you can essentially have the exact same offer, product, or service. You don't have to change anything fundamentally about what it is that you're selling. And it doesn't matter if there are other competitors that are selling something that's similar or that's perceived to be the same thing. All we are doing with an angle is we are changing the way that our offer, product, or service is being perceived. So you could have something that you've been selling for years, but if you change the angle to your customers, it's going to seem like a brand new product. And oftentimes with brand new products, if they hit the right mark, you're going to see a massive spike in sales. This is especially important because if you are in a competitive industry where there are people that are selling similar things to you, obviously, it's important to be able to stand out from them. You don't want to be the company that's being price shopped or that's being compared. So then when your salespeople or people are thinking about buying your product, they're saying, well, how are you different from XYZ company? It makes it look like that you guys are offering the same thing. You want to exist in a category of one because that's how you attract the best customers. It's how you charge the highest prices. And it usually means you're going to have the highest profit margins. So 100% having an angle is going to allow you to change the way your offer, product, or service is perceived. And as a result, stand out among competitors, unlock new customer segments, and attract pre-sold customers. This is the biggest thing that we're going to be talking about is when you do this right, when you nail an angle, when you really have something that is truly perceived as different and unique, you are not going to have to do that much more selling. Because I honestly don't consider myself to be that good a copywriter. I've written all of my copy for every single one of my offers that has sold over $62 million worth of products. But even then, I don't think my copywriting is that good. The thing that I put most of my time and attention into is the angle. Because if you have a really, really strong angle, you are going to attract pre-sold customers, which means later on, you're not going to have to deal with a ton of objections. You're not going to have to you're not going to have the world's craziest over-the-top sales pitch or guarantee or anything like that because you're starting off on the right foot. You're starting off from a very strong frame of authority. Because the biggest part about this is ideally, the angle that you have is ideally also going to pre-remove some of the most common buying objections that people have about your offer, product, or service. So if you're selling an offer, product, or service that every single time, your salespeople, your live chat, your customer support, every single time before someone buys, they're always asking the same things. They're always saying, is this really going to work for me if I'm X, Y, and Z? Or what about if this happens? Is this still going to work for me? If you're getting a lot of the same objections over and over and over, and it seems like a difficult thing to overcome without fundamentally changing your product or service, an angle is going to 100% help with that. And like I said before, I truly believe that you could be a not amazing copywriter like I am. I write very simply. If any of you have ever read any of the emails on my email list or seen any of my ads, there are not these flowy, over-the-top works of art. They're honestly like kind of written for a third grader because I really like writing very, very simply. So that is why, in my opinion, why it's the number one skill that you can have, because if you are good at this, you can be a mediocre copywriter, you can be a mediocre Facebook ad media buyer, you can be a mediocre funnel builder. You don't need to be top 1% in all of those categories. If you nail the thing here, that is the most important of all. And like I was talking about before, if you are a marketer that works with clients, if you're an agency owner, a freelancer, a consultant, by far this is probably the place that you should be focusing the majority of your time, rather than all of those other skills that I just listed out, like copywriting, media buying, funnel building. Those things are good, but at the end of the day, they're a commodity. They are things that at the end of the day, they're going to be seen as the same as everything else. Whereas if you can be an overflowing source of new and creative angles, new and creative ways to sell something that a business can use to stand out from their competitors, increase their profit margins without having them to change the fundamental idea, the fundamental concept of what their product or service is, you are never going to be broke a day in your life. I promise you, your clients are never going to get rid of you. They literally want to keep you around 24/7 for as many months, as many years as possible, because this is the thing that actually moves the needle. This is the thing that's actually going to make it easy to run Facebook ads, to run YouTube ads, to do any form of marketing, and not have to be that good at it. If you nail this thing correctly, I promise you, it's going to make the rest of your funnel, the rest of your customer buying journey, whatever you want to call it, 100 times easier. So that is fundamentally what an angle is. And I want to give you an example of what an angle is and what it looks like in real life, kind of with a funny example. This is a supplement company, I think, a weight loss company that had a really, really creative angle that I had never seen before. It sounds kind of funny because we're talking about pooping, but you're going to see the impact that this angle has. That as soon as you hear it, you're kind of like, what the hell is he talking about? Like, is this real? Like, you kind of feel like you have to learn more to even be able to, you feel like you have to learn more to kind of just figure out what this person is talking about, because it's such a wild idea. And if it was true, if what the advertiser is saying is true, then that obviously is pretty mind-blowing. And that's the feeling you want a good angle to have. You want it to be kind of curiosity-inducing, kind of like, what the hell is this? Kind of, the sort of thing that's almost just on the shred, just on the border of unbelievable, but it keeps them watching to have to figure out this is real and this could mean a huge benefit in my life. So I'm going to go ahead and play this here.
Scientists discovered some people have a secret pooping habit that keeps them effortlessly thin, even without diet or exercise.
So literally in the first 8 seconds, we have a pretty crazy angle, a pretty crazy big idea. That there is something called a pooping habit that is keeping people effortlessly thin without them having to worry about their exercise and their diet, which we're going to go over all of the different components that make up a strong angle so that obviously you can dissect different competitors, different angles that might exist in your marketplace, and most importantly, so that you can build angles for yourself or for your clients. But you can tell right away that there is a lot of loaded benefits inside of this angle, that there is a big reason why someone should want to stick around, because rather than wasting all of this time on exercising, spending hours in the gym and having to eat diets that probably make you miserable, now you're saying I can just have a pretty unique pooping habit. I can just poop out the excess weight and that's going to keep me skinny, which I have no idea if it's true. I don't really know. But the angle itself is very, very strong. And this was such a strong angle in the weight loss space. Now there's countless examples of companies that are doing this. It's a very common angle now. It's been ripped off many, many times, and that's the unfortunate thing. Obviously, an angle can kind of be your moat. It can be something that you put your flag on and obviously have a claim to fame in your marketplace. But if it is really, really strong and it's easy for another company to kind of take it and use it for their offer, that's probably what's going to happen. It's just the nature of capitalism, which I'll show you here. Very, very similar angle that's used by this company.
Did you know that the average adult has 5 to 20 pounds of toxic poop in their body at any given moment? Seems crazy, right?
So he's obviously saying it in a different way. He's not talking about diet, exercise, staying effortlessly thin. They put kind of their own spin on it of like, you have 5 to 20 pounds of toxic poop, which obviously the implication is, well, if I can lose this toxic poop, I'm going to lose 5 to 20 pounds like instantly, basically, which is a pretty unique idea. The angle is still the same. We're still talking about this idea of having this poop inside of your body that's going to help you lose weight, which is pretty crazy. Obviously, I'll give them props to them for not directly ripping it off and obviously adding their own spin to it. But this is the power of having a good angle, is obviously people are going to pay attention. People are going to want to jump on it. And it's going to work to a degree, but just like anything else, the first person, the creator of the angle, the person that actually comes up with the unique, innovative idea, that's the person that's going to get the lion's share of the profits, because just like a lot of these advertisers, I've had my angles ripped off more times than I can count, and I never really see any of those competitors advertising for very long, because obviously a lot of customers can tell that this is not the original. They've seen the original and that this is kind of like a cheap ripoff, so that usually means that they're not going to make as much money. There's still some money to be made, and yes, it's annoying that those things happen, but if you are the first person that comes up with it, you're the first person that invents it, 100% you are going to have the vast majority of the profits to enjoy. So this is just one example. One more before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of today's training. If you've ever heard about getting solar panels on your house, using that to save money on your electric bill, this is a very common angle that now I've seen like a million different times for solar companies, which is a pretty interesting way of framing the cost of getting solar panels, which are usually pretty expensive. I'll play it here.
Do not buy solar panels if you live in one of these 11 states of America. It's the worst decision you could make for your home. Did you know that in certain states of America, the U.S. government will now buy panels for you and make them available for no cost in case you go solar in the next couple of weeks?
So we obviously have a very strong attention grabber where it's talking about like 11 states in America, but the angle, the idea is that the U.S. government is going to pay for your solar panels, which, again, I don't know how true that is. It sounds legitimate. It sounds believable, and I'm sure that the actual mechanism is that you're going to get like a tax credit or a rebate or something like that, which I guarantee whatever advertiser came up with this angle first, that was something that they were kind of brainstorming. They were thinking about what are all the things that actually go into the buying process of getting solar panels. And a lot of people that get solar panels, if you live in the right state, there's a lot of tax credits, there's a lot of incentives for people to do that. There's rebates, there's tax credits, like I said, there's discounts, there's financing, etc. So for them to create this angle out of that idea that the government is like basically paying you with all of these rebates and credits for you to go solar, it's an interesting idea. I can see why it's very attention grabbing. And obviously now that solar is a lot more competitive, there's a lot more people that are doing it. But guarantee the very first company, the very first advertiser that was running this angle probably cleaned up, and they probably did so for a very, very long time. If not, they're still doing it now. So really great angle. Really amazing examples in the health space, in the solar space, and obviously this applies to everything. I'm going to go over some specific examples later. In the make money niche, if you teach people how to start a business, grow a business, how to invest, how to get a job, we'll go over some more health examples, some relationship examples. We'll cover everything in kind of the info marketing industry. Before we do that, though, one thing that's very, very important to clarify, because I see this all the time, and it frustrates me because I see people that kind of think that they're getting the benefit of this, but they're not really. If anything, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot. What an angle is not just making up like a word or a phrase or a name and just putting it in quotation marks. I see this all the time. I don't know why people do it. But if you ever see a marketer talk about having like my unique proprietary black box marketing system or something like that, or like a weight loss coach having like my ultra burn fat loss weight loss explosion, and then because they've put it in quotation marks, that means it's their angle, that's their patented trademark, and that means they're different from their competitors. As you can imagine, this is kind of like an over-the-top exaggeration of it. But a lot of these things, if people hear it, they just know it's BS. They're not stupid. There's very specific components that need to be included in your angle to actually get the benefits of it. And just making some name up and putting it in quotations is not doing anything to convince your customers. Your customers are not stupid. They know you just made that up, and they know that this is not some proprietary world-breaking thing because it clearly just sounds made up. So this is not what an angle is. The things that I already showed you don't need to do that because the angle itself is strong. With the pooping example, with the solar example, and with many others that we're going to go over. The reasons why you need a strong angle, beyond just being able to make you more money, the very first of which is a strong angle is going to help you stand out from competitors, because the goal is that you're in a category of one. Anytime you can be compared next to someone, you are at a loss in the information marketing space. Because if you are selling information, whether it's an online course, whether it's coaching, whether that coaching is group coaching, one-on-one coaching, whatever, information inherently is commoditized. It is inherently going to be compared to one thing or another. So if you sell a stock trading course, inherently people know there's a lot of different stock trading courses out there. Just like there's a lot of Airbnb investing courses. There's a lot of courses and books about how to lose weight and about every other topic about how to do things on the planet. So the goal is that this angle is going to put you in a category of one, that there's no one else that can claim this thing unless they literally directly rip you off. The mindset behind this, if you've ever heard the business strategy of blue ocean versus red ocean, basically a blue ocean is just a wide open marketplace that has no competitors and all of the customers are ripe for the taking, versus a red ocean is where there's a ton of competition. The waters are so bloody with competition that everyone's fighting over the same customers. Basically, the way to think about it is that a strong angle is essentially your boat. You can use your boat, you can use your angle to move out of a red ocean without changing anything about your company, without changing anything about your product, and go to a blue ocean, an ocean that you have created, and because you've created it, that means you're not going to have any direct competition. The big fundamental important thing to understand is that a red ocean, anything that inherently has competition, it means there is already demand. And that demand is already being fought over. There's already customers that know about this thing. And as a result of it, they're all kind of competing. All the companies in that industry are all competing to advertise to the same customers. In a blue ocean, the biggest fundamental difference, and it's why this skill is, in my opinion, one of the hardest in the world to master, but it's the reason it's so profitable, is because demand does not exist in a blue ocean. Demand is created usually by the first company, the first advertiser, the first business owner that happens to create that demand in that industry. For example, in the example with the health offers, there was probably zero demand for pills that help you get rid of the toxic poop inside of your body. That market probably did not exist until they started telling people about the angle. Hey, did you know that there might be toxic poop inside of your body? Because of that, now they have a market, a new market that they've just created that now has people interested in it that they can then generally use to sell their weight loss pills. I'm guessing that's what they're selling, is they're selling pills that help you get rid of the toxic poop inside of your body. So in that sense, they've created a brand new ocean. They've created this demand that did not exist before with the angle and with the idea that they're framing their product with. That's very, very important because at the end of the day, if you can master the skill of angle creation, essentially you're going to have the ability to create demand, create blue oceans at will. And that is quite literally the thing that makes every business millions and millions of dollars. So you can imagine why this is such a profitable skill to have. And in a lot of cases, even if you do get ripped off, everyone's obviously going to know that you were the first, and it's going to set the standard for your industry. For example, Amazon's 2-day delivery came from their massive obsession with focusing on customer experience. Now you're going to be hard-pressed to find an e-commerce store, find an e-commerce retailer that doesn't have 2-day delivery. Like Walmart, Best Buy, Target, all of these have basically been forced to adapt because of Amazon's angle that we're the best because we care so much about our customers that we have 2-day and even overnight delivery, which for many years that did not exist, and that was a pretty wild thing to think about. So that is the first point, is that a strong angle is going to basically eliminate competitors. It allows you to create demand and basically create new marketplaces, new blue oceans at will. The second most important thing, beyond just not having competition, because there's always going to be some level of competition, if not from people copying you later on, or there's going to be some other people that are kind of selling the same thing as you. A big, big benefit of having a strong angle is that it unlocks new customer segments. Most importantly, it unlocks a new segment of customers that is easier to sell to. It's usually people that have more money and are more willing to spend it on your product and service. I call this a broader and less jaded audience because most business owners, most offers, most marketers are selling to people that kind of are already interested in whatever it is that they're talking about. If you run a business that sells a course on the keto diet, my guess is, unless you're already doing a lot of the things I'm going to be talking about, my guess is that a good percentage of your customers already knew about the keto diet and the benefits of it before they invested into your course. Same thing is true with day trading the stock market. If you sell a course on day trading the stock market, unless you're doing a lot of the things I'm going to be talking about, my guess is a lot of people that are investing into that course have already heard about day trading the stock market in America and are already doing it or have done it in the past. And this is not inherently a bad thing. That's always going to be the case. But what often comes with a history with things, what comes with a history of weight loss, of diets and investing strategies and business strategies, whatever it is that you're selling, they're going to come with hangups. They're going to come with more resistance because they obviously have had bad experiences in the past. For example, if someone had, if you're selling a course on fasting and teaching people how to lose weight with fasting, if someone has already bought into a course about fasting and it didn't work for them and it made their life like really miserable, like they were just really hungry all the time and they just weren't happy, the odds are extremely low. Even though they already know everything that you're talking about, they already know kind of all the benefits of fasting, they're probably just going to ignore all of your marketing because they're like, well, I already heard about this. I already know what they're talking about. This isn't for me. It's not going to work for me. The problem is that this person, because this diet of fasting did not work for them, it did not help them reach their goal of losing weight, they're still searching for the right product. And they're probably going to continue spending money on this because people don't just give up on a lot of the major problems in their life. If they've consistently been unhappy with their weight and they have not been able to lose the weight, they're probably going to keep buying diets and keep buying workout routines and keep buying all these things until they actually achieve their goal. The same thing is true with investing, with money, with growing a business, starting a business, whatever it might happen to be. As long as the problem is unresolved, that customer still exists in the marketplace. And the goal that we want to have with a strong angle is that we're not just selling to these jaded people that already know what you're talking about, but they already have had a bad experience or they've heard about a bad experience related to your opportunity, because that usually means they're going to be harder to sell to. They're going to be more resistant and less trusting of you, the advertiser or the business owner. Instead, what we want to have is creating a unique angle, which obviously gives us a unique position in the marketplace, a position where no one has ever really heard about what you're talking about, like the toxic poop, the government solar program, or any number of examples I'm going to show you. And because of that, because you have that unique angle that gives you that unique positioning, someone is going to hear about your opportunity, your product, or your offer. They're not going to have any memorable bad experiences associated with it. They're going to perceive it as completely different. And fundamentally, people like doing new things, because it seems like the grass is greener over here. They're not going to have any trauma or any negative experiences to associate with it, which means they're going to be a lot more likely to want to spend money with you. And the most important thing, I'm going to show you a diagram. The biggest portion of your audience are people that are not immediately thinking about buying. If you are selling a keto diet course, it is a very small percentage of people. I'll show you the graph right here. Is a very crowded, small subset of the market of what's called active buyers. People that already know about the keto diet, they know they want to do it, they're ready to buy a course, they're ready to buy a product on it, they're just trying to find the right one. That is maybe 3% of the total buyers in any given marketplace. That's not just true for diets, it's true for making money, it's true for relationships, it's true for mindset, it doesn't really matter what it is. The big opportunity zone is this middle of the pyramid, this middle part of the pyramid right here. 7% is pretty small, but it is more than 3, are people that are open to the idea of buying. So these are maybe people that have maybe lightly heard about whatever it is that you're talking about, whether it's the keto diet, whether it's Airbnb investing, stock trading, whatever it is. The big portion of this pyramid that eventually you kind of want to work your way down are these two zones that make up 60% of the total buyers inside of a market, is people that are not thinking of buying or people that don't think they're interested. If you can capture just this zone, the 30% of not thinking of buying, you've already captured a very healthy portion of the market. And the big advertisers, the one that scale to 8 figures and multiple 8 figures, they are the ones that can capture this entire section, which adds up to 70% of the total pyramid. The ones that's probably going to be almost impossible is this bottom 30%, is people that know they're not interested. There's a certain percentage of the population that is never going to buy a weight loss course. There's a certain percentage of the population that's never going to buy an investing course, a business course, or a product on any number of these things. But our goal, like I was talking about before, the goal of a strong angle is it unlocks these new customer segments that we weren't originally tapping into before. And because they're less crowded, there's less competition, they're inherently a little more difficult to advertise to. It takes more skill, as we're going to be talking about. These larger subsets of the pyramid are a much broader, they're a less jaded audience. They don't have as many bad experiences with other competitors or other products. And as a result of that, they're usually going to be much more likely to want to spend money with you. We just need to have the right pitch. We need to have the right angle to bring them in the first place. The next thing that an angle is super, super important for, and this is especially important if you are someone that doesn't already have decades of experience, you don't have hundreds of testimonials, and this is something, a company that you are largely bootstrapping, whether it's yours or a client that you're working with, is that a strong angle can create massive belief and authority on its own. So naturally, if you've been doing something, if you've been a weight loss coach for 20 years, you've worked with a ton of celebrities, you have an amazing track record, you don't really need to be that creative in your marketing. You just say, well, I've been doing this for 20 years and now you want to spend money with me. And you just get all the customers that want to spend money with you. But that's not really how entrepreneurship and it's not really how marketing goes for most people. Everyone has to start somewhere. So having a strong angle is kind of like a cheat code. It basically gives you a shortcut to having a lot of belief and authority with your audience without needing to rely on you. Because the thing that a strong angle does, it removes the implication that you need to sell people on you or your company or your offer or your product or service in general. Because if people believe in your angle, if your angle is strong and people just believe in that thing, like if people believe that the government is going to buy solar for me, if people believe that there is toxic poop inside of my body, they don't really need that much selling on you and your company. Because this is such a unique, novel, and strong idea for a lot of reasons that I'm going to be talking about shortly. They're going to have a much higher likelihood of buying from you just because the angle is so strong. So the question you should ask yourself with any product or any service that you're trying to advertise, you want to ask yourself, what do I want people to believe in that if they do, I'm the only option for them to go with? Because if this was the very first time someone was seeing an ad about toxic poop in their body, if I can just get them to believe that, if I can make a very compelling, strong argument for why there's toxic poop in your body and that if you can get rid of it, you are immediately going to lose weight, then guess what? They're going to sell them they're going to buy whatever it is I'm going to sell them. It could be toxic poop supplements. It could be a course on different foods you can make to get rid of this toxic poop. It could be some sort of device or apparatus. I don't really know. It doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, I don't need to sell people that hard on me, my company, my product or service if the angle itself does the selling for me. So that's a perfect example that if people believe in the angle, if they believe in the idea that there is toxic poop in my body and I do have the ability to get rid of it, then obviously they're going to be, this company for a very long time was probably the only option for a lot of these customers to go with. And the reason for this is because essentially what we're doing is we're creating belief in a vacuum. We're creating an environment where people will believe that you are the only person who they can go to, because you can't really Google like toxic poop supplements, not early on in the days that they were marketing or advertising this. Now you probably could. But in the early days of they created an environment where people saw this company, they saw this advertiser as the only one that they could logically go with. And that is a very, very powerful place to be in terms of belief, in terms of authority. That it basically simplifies a lot of our marketing and a lot of our sales process. Rather than having to do all of this objection handling, all of this covering of our bases, and like I said, needing decades of experience or hundreds of testimonials, instead, we just need to get people to believe in one thing. We need to get people to believe in an angle that if they believe in, it's going to knock down every other objection. Russell Brunson, in his books, he calls this the big domino, that there's always going to be one big belief, one big objection that if we can knock that over, everything else is going to fall over and just be an easy thing to deal with. But if you don't knock over the big domino, obviously someone is never going to buy. Because generally speaking, the more things that you are asking people to believe during your sales process, the more things that you're asking them to buy in mentally on, the worse you're going to do, because people are only going to believe a certain amount of things. And it's the reason why in a lot of our offers, people will buy in, but they're still going to be skeptical about me. They're like, I'm not so sure about this Lucas guy, but he was the one telling me about this, so I kind of feel like I need to do it. This is the power of focusing on a really great angle. Because if I can just focus on this one thing, just narrow down my sales process and simplify it, you're not going to have to sell for as long. You're not going to have to sell for as hard as a lot of salespeople and a lot of marketers do. And instead, just convince people about this one thing that's going to yield the best results for your sales process. A really great template, I think this is from Russell Brunson, which is if I can make people believe that something is the key to what they desire most, and it's only attainable through you, your company, your product, your service, your offer, whatever it is, then all other objections and concerns are going to become irrelevant. And they have to give me money. Russell Brunson used this concept essentially to sell ClickFunnels and to generate hundreds of millions of dollars with it. Russell Brunson does not start by selling you on ClickFunnels and his software, because he knows that most people don't really understand this concept of sales funnels. And if they don't understand that, they're not really going to care about buying his software about funnels in the first place. Instead, what's more important is just getting people to believe in the idea, getting people to believe in the angle of funnels, because if people believe in that, it's inherently going to give him that massive belief and massive authority. So using that template with him, he said to himself, if I can make people believe that funnels are the key to online business success, they're only attainable through ClickFunnels, then all other objections and all other concerns become irrelevant, and they have to give me money. This is the reason why ClickFunnels absolutely dominated the internet marketing and the online business space for a very long time, until naturally a bunch of competitors came in and they started competing with ClickFunnels, and now he can't be the only one that's running this angle, because if he says, you have to believe that funnels are the key to online business success, and I'm the only one who can offer it to you, well, guess what? There's a bunch of other people that now offer the ability to funnel build, basically using the exact same software. So now they have to get creative. They have to go back to the drawing board and create new angles that can give them this exact same power inside of the marketplace. But that's one of the biggest benefits of it is, like I said, it gives you massive belief and authority. Even if you are a beginner, you're not getting started with a ton of testimonials or decades of experience. And even if you do have those things, it removes a lot of the pressure on you to have to sell yourself, sell your company, or oversell your product or service or your offer. And last but not least, perhaps one of the most important things is a strong angle is new, exciting, and desirable. It's kind of a core human emotion to try things that are new. They're exciting. Most people believe in this idea that the grass is greener on the other side, especially if the things they have tried before haven't worked. If someone has had a bad experience with something, whether it's in the realm of weight loss, whether it's in the realm of making money, investing, whatever it might happen to be, they're still trying to solve the problem. Like I talked about, they've not just given up on losing weight or given up on making money. Rarely does the desire leave their brain, but they have lost the desire to try any of the things that have already gone poorly for them. And that is the power of having a strong angle. It's a way of offering something new to someone without necessarily changing anything about your product or service. Most people inherently hate the idea of continuing to do things that haven't worked in the past. You can see this with divorce. Most people would rather just find a new partner rather than continuing trying to work things out with someone. If you look at shiny object syndrome in entrepreneurs, most entrepreneurs hop from one business model to the other every 3 months just because it seems more exciting than just working on one business and making it better over time. If you look at the amount of new fad diets that pop up every single year and every couple of years, it's proof that for the inception of humans, probably people have wanted to look good to the people around them, and we're just trying to find the easiest and the fastest way of doing it. So people like doing new things. Like I said, it's a breath of fresh air to frustrated people that there is still hope for them to solve their problem. It's the promise that the grass is greener over here. If you come try this thing, it's going to be completely different from all the other things that you've tried before, and instead, this is going to be very, very exciting. I thought that was the last one. This is actually, I think, the last one. That a strong angle, if you do these things correctly, as I'm going to talk about, is it's very heavily favored on social media. So I'm guessing the vast majority of people watching this are either marketing or advertising their business in some way or their clients' businesses in some way on social media, whether it's running ads or posting organically. No matter what it is, having a strong angle is also very favorable in the eyes of Meta, in the eyes of Google, TikTok, no matter what it is, because social media platforms love new and unique content. They don't like when people just rip off other people's ideas and they make the 10th video with the same hook, the same idea over and over and over again. And that is what I have found to be the most effective way to advertise on social media. If you are spending money on ads, you always want to try and match the type of content that already people are posting. So then your content doesn't stand out too much. It doesn't look like an advertisement, but instead it kind of blends in. It seems very authentic and obviously can connect with your potential customers. The other big benefit of this is that creative angles can let you capitalize on trends and link them to your offer, even if your offer technically has nothing to do with them. So for example, the government solar offer, if they were running that during a time, like during an election year, for example, they could say Donald Trump is going to be paying for your solar or something like that. That would be an easy way to link it to current events, to things that people are talking about all over social media without fundamentally changing their product. And that's obviously just one idea that I completely made up. But hopefully you're starting to see just the different ways that we can use this to benefit your business and your offer. I had a lot more of these than I listed out. There's apparently a ton of different benefits of strong angles. A strong angle is easier to write compliant copy for. For any of you that have ever read any of my marketing emails, ever seen any of my ads or anything like that, you know that they're not really Shakespearean works of art. They're written very, very simply. And the reason is because, like I was talking about before, if you have a strong angle, you don't need to sell yourself or your offer or your company that hard. We're only selling the angle. We're selling something external. And in doing so, we don't really need to make that crazy a claim. We don't need to go super over the top in what we are promising people, nor do we have to be an amazing writer. We don't have to be Shakespeare. We don't have to be the next David Ogilvy. You can actually write very, very simply if you have a strong angle. And the thing that I always try and do now is I know if I have a good angle, I know if I have a good idea on my hands, if I can write it very simply at like a 4th grade reading level and still have it print millions and millions of dollars and still have it be something that's incredibly profitable. What I try and do for this is I always try and write my copy at an FK score. That's basically a way of grading the readability of sales copy. I always try and write at an FK score of 90 or above. And you can use ChatGPT for this. Just go into ChatGPT and say, tell me the FK score of this copy, and then just copy and paste whatever it is you're writing on that. And it'll tell you what is the FK score and then what is the average reading level of that copy. Because ultimately what we want to do, like I said, we want to have such a strong angle that we don't need to be amazing writers. We don't need to write super over the top. Instead, we can focus most of our time and attention on improving the angle, not just writing endlessly long copy over and over and over. So those are all the amazing benefits of angles. And the reason I wanted to go through all of that is, again, just to make sure that we are on the same page. This is something that should not be taken lightly. Like I said, if I had to attribute like 80, 90% of my success in my marketing and selling over $62 million of my own info products, 100% it would be this. Because I promise you, if you are good at this, you can be an absolute buffoon when it comes to your advertising. You don't even really need to know how to use the Facebook Ads Manager, the Google Ads Manager. You don't need to be that good a writer. But if you're good at this, I promise you everything else is going to fall into place. You don't even need to be that organized. You don't need to be that disciplined inside of your business. Obviously, it will help, but I know a lot of people that have used this skill, been not the best business owners, not the best marketers, but they still make a ton of money. So it's the reason I really wanted to clarify that. But now what we're going to go through is the sexy stuff, the fun stuff of how to actually do this for yourself, of how to actually create a killer angle for any offer, whether it's for your own business, a client's businesses, or any other number of businesses you might be involved in the future. What I have personally found just from me doing this, spending 15 million of my own dollars on advertising, on marketing, my own offers, my own angles, I have found now that there are 5 crucial key components to having a killer angle that can potentially print millions of dollars in profit. And I've abbreviated these 5 with an acronym that goes by Olsen. We're going to go through each one of these components that's involved with Olsen. These 5 components are originality, leveraged authority, speed, ease, and newness. And these components, as we're going to go over later, are ordered in terms of their importance. So all 5 of these components are important. Ideally, an angle is going to have all 5 components of Olsen. But if you go and only have a few, and if you're just getting started, you're trying to get better at this skill, focus on the first ones. Focus on originality, leveraged authority, and speed. Ease and newness are great, but the earlier ones, in my opinion, are going to yield a much bigger swing in performance and as a result, the profits that your angle can potentially generate. So I would mainly focus on the early ones, originality, leverage authority, and speed. With that being said, ideally, if you can have all 5, if you can also have ease and newness be included in your angle, it's going to be that much better. So starting with originality, this is probably the most important thing. I've already gone over this many, many times. The many benefits of being original, of being the first person that is talking about something. A massive key factor of having a strong angle is that you are the first person that's bringing this to your market. And this is very important because obviously there's certain ideas that have already been said before, but they haven't necessarily been talked about in the context of your market. So for example, the idea of cutting out carbs has long been, a health trend, but only recently, I think in like the last 5 or 6 years, has it been associated with weight loss. So it was the first time that this idea was being brought to the weight loss market. And the same thing is true in many other markets like making money or relationships or things like that. But you want to make sure that ideally, in an ideal world, like I said, this is the most important thing, that you are the only person in your space, whether it's the make money space, the investing space, the weight loss space, whatever it is, that you are the only one that's talking about this thing and bringing it to your marketplace. Because the massive benefit of this is that you have no direct competitors. Yes, there might be other companies that are talking about the same general concept, but they're not selling to the same customer base that you are. The other important thing is that, like I was talking about before, you can have the exact same underlying product. You can have the exact same underlying offer as any number of competitors in your industry, but if your angle is original, even if your product is the same, your customers are not going to be able to tell the difference. Your customers are going to perceive you as being the only person that offers this thing, which obviously puts you in a category of one and lets you scoop up most of the profits. It goes back to the template that I was talking about before. If you can make people believe that your thing, your angle, your idea, your opportunity is the key to what they desire most, whether it's losing weight, making money, finding a partner, being happy in their relationship, whatever it is, and that thing is only attainable through you and your business, whatever it is that you're offering, then all other objections or all other concerns are going to become irrelevant, and they're going to have to give you money. The unfortunate thing about this, the reason that this is the most important is because originality can only last so long. Eventually, competitors are going to catch on to your angle. They're going to attempt to model it. They're going to attempt to copy it for their own offer. And that's why this skill is so indispensable to many businesses. That it's not just a one and done sort of thing like, okay, we got our angle, we can stop doing this. But instead, you always have to be on top of these things. And the biggest companies in the world in the consumer spaces are doing these exact same things. And I'm going to be going over some templates at the end of this after I go through all 5 components of this, of ways that you can start brainstorming this for your own offers. But just some examples of originality and angles. The ones that we've already gone over before I think are great. Until I'd seen a lot of those ads, I'd never heard this idea that there's toxic poop inside of my body. So that is 100% a very original thing, as is the idea that the government is going to pay for your solar panels. Another very famous example of this is the idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, which if you look at the history of marketing, this was an idea that was invented by the breakfast companies, by Kellogg's and a few others, to sell more of their products. They did a big marketing campaign to perpetuate this idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, that you should never skip it, and as a result, that's why you need to buy more of our cereals and more bacon and more eggs and all of these other things. Which at the time no one had ever heard of. It was an original angle for what it was. Another original angle that is starting to become, at least at the time of recording this, a little more competitive. I see more and more people starting to do it, but it's this idea that AI is going to replace jobs, that AI could potentially mean that you get let go from your job, that you're paid less at your job, that there's just less opportunity in the job marketplace, and usually the people that are using this angle are using it to sell some sort of business opportunity course, some sort of job course or investing course, because obviously if someone believes AI could take my job, that means I'm out of an income. Now I need something that is AI proof that can obviously make sure I still continue making money. So all of these at the time were very original ideas. And the length of the originality of how long it's going to last could be anywhere from, honestly, maybe like a year on the lowest. Usually that's going to be the amount of time that it's going to take for someone to actually see your success, rip you off, and actually have an impact on your own customers and your own profits. Usually it's going to be minimum a year, but potentially it could be decades. It could be many, many years before anyone catches on that you're really making a ton of money, that you're really having a lot of success. So you do have to be careful with this. You do have to be careful with showing people your angles and letting people know that things are working really well for you, because inevitably people are going to rip you off. So that is the first and most important component of it, originality. If you don't have originality in your angle, there's not really a point in having all these others, because it's first, in my opinion, it's the most important. If you have originality, you've already accomplished a lot of the heavy lifting with your angle. The second most important thing that should be involved in your angle is what I like to call leveraged authority. So in my personal opinion, the era that we live in today of marketing and advertising, where people see, I don't know how many, there's some statistic where people see like 10,000 advertisements every single day, just with social media and just all the different things we're inundated with every single day. It is becoming more and more important that we are not just trying to sell ourselves or sell our product or sell our company, because people immediately tune those things out. As soon as people can tell that you're selling something, that you're offering something, immediately their level of trust, their level of interest in you begins to decline. And that's where leveraged authority comes into play. This is the concept of having someone, some other authority figure or organization or something else that is talking about the same thing that you are and essentially backing you up. Because this means that you do not need to be selling yourself, your offer, or your company. It takes a lot of the pressure off you. And instead, we just need to sell this other big authority figure. If we can sell people on them, on this other thing, because I'm just the one telling you about them, I'm not associated with them, they're not me, I'm not them. So obviously, I don't have a vested interest in you going to believe in them. But if they do believe in you, it's going to make it that much more likely that they actually do buy your product or service. For example, the angle that I just went over about how a lot of people are starting to use the angle of AI is going to take your job. The example of leveraged authority in this that I've personally used with a few offers of my own, and I see a bunch of people starting to use as well, is this idea, which is true. It's a statistic that says, did you know that Goldman Sachs predicts that over 300 million jobs are going to be lost to artificial intelligence? That's a pretty scary statistic. That is more than the entire population of America, if not almost 100% of the population of America. And it's being backed up by one of the oldest, wealthiest financial institutions in the entire world. That's pretty terrifying. So if I can get people to believe in Goldman Sachs, if I can get people to believe in artificial intelligence, naturally they're going to be a lot more likely to buy my program, to buy my course, to buy my book that's going to show them how to get into an AI-proof industry. They might not have been interested in that before, but because of this leveraged authority, because I'm not trying to establish myself as this all-knowing expert or this all-knowing guru, I'm just telling you a fact. I'm just pointing you to this other massive authority figure that other people believe in. The odds of them wanting to buy from me instantly go through the roof. And that's why this is, just after originality, one of the most important things that you can have in your angle, because it's going to make your life so much easier. An angle that I've used for one of my offers that you might have seen before, and I've seen a lot of people now do as well, is the angle of, did you know that you can make money on YouTube without ever creating your own channel? So rather than telling people, I have a crazy new way of making money on YouTube, I'm just telling them about making money on YouTube in general, because YouTube is obviously a very household name platform. A lot of people know it. A lot of people trust it. They see it as legitimate, because obviously a lot of people know that there's a lot of money to be made on YouTube. So there's a lot of weight. There's a lot of authority. There's a lot of belief on the YouTube platform and in the name of YouTube. The problem is most people imagine that to make money on YouTube, you have to be an influencer. You have to start this crazy YouTube channel where you're doing pranks or you're doing these interviews or anything that grabs a lot of attention. And it's going to take a ton of time, a ton of hard work, but eventually you could make money. So this is a very interesting angle. It did very well for a very particular reason, because obviously we have the authority in YouTube, but we're presenting this idea that's new, original, and unique. That is, you can actually make money on YouTube without creating your own channel, which obviously implies that I don't need to go through the whole song and dance of making all of these videos, of wasting months of my time, of buying fancy equipment in order to actually start getting the benefits of it. So now my goal, what I would do inside of that sales funnel and inside of that customer journey, I don't need to sell myself that hard. I don't need to sell my company. I just need to get people to believe. I need to sell people on YouTube as a platform. And that's exactly what I did inside of that funnel. I gave a lot of proof, a lot of statistics that there's a lot of money to be made on YouTube. YouTube is one of the fastest growing social media platforms, and it actually did the best out of any social media platform during the pandemic. And that's why this is such a lucrative opportunity for people to make money with. So these are just two examples. You know, we always want to have something else that we can shift the pressure and shift the authority off of. Because if there's too much on us, people are going to find something wrong with you. They're not going to like how you speak. They're going to Google something. They're going to find some way to just poke a hole if everything is just dependent on you, your brand, and your company, because they just met you. They probably don't trust you fully yet. And obviously, none of this really matters if you already have like multi-year long relationships with thousands and thousands of people. But my guess is you don't have that. So in order to create that sort of trust, that authority, that belief very, very quickly, we need to use someone else. We need to use some other authority figure, some other authority organization that is essentially talking about the same thing and is essentially backing us up. And that's the perfect example with these two, with Goldman Sachs and YouTube and artificial intelligence. The next, third most important thing, which again, like I said before, if you're only going to get three things inside of your angle, I would make it these first three: originality, leveraged authority, and speed. Speed is probably by far the thing that more and more people are valuing beyond anything else in today's age. If you look at Amazon's 2-day shipping, it's a perfect example. If you look at food delivery apps, it's another perfect example. People want things now. We're more impatient than ever. We have shorter attention spans than ever, which naturally means we want things to happen immediately. We don't want to have to sit around and wait for them. So as a result, with your angle, there should be a very heavy implication that people are going to be able to get their desired result faster than they would with any other alternative. The key important point about this, and I think this is a shift in consumer thinking and consumer behavior, people would rather have things happen faster, even if it means it's smaller. So this is one of the big benefits of this, is that we can write more compliant copy where we're not making these crazy claims like make $1 million by next week or get a 6-pack in 2 weeks or anything like that. Most people don't believe that stuff anymore because they've seen so many scams. They've seen many, many cases where that's actually not true. And instead, what they would rather have, kind of the stretch of the imagination that they would prefer, is something that is much faster, even if that result is smaller or not as significant. And like I said, like I've been talking about, in more competitive industries where people have tried different things, people have tried to lose weight, they've tried a million different diets, people have tried to make money, they've tried a million different businesses and investment opportunities. Anytime you're in an industry where people have had failures, you are going to benefit much more in selling speed and a fast feedback loop rather than some big end of the tunnel promise. For example, an angle that I've seen probably first came up in like 2022 in recent years, but it was this angle of make money renting out other people's properties on Airbnb. This is a pretty unique angle because most people imagine to start getting into the real estate investing game, to start making money on Airbnb or real estate properties in general, that's probably going to take a lot of time. First, I have to go through the process of getting the property, I have to furnish it, then I have to start renting it out. But if I'm renting out someone else's property that already exists and I'm just putting it on Airbnb, that's the implication here. That sounds like it's going to be a lot faster, and that's going to be a lot more attractive than me going out and trying to buy, the biggest apartment building in downtown San Francisco. That just sounds like terrifying. It doesn't sound like anything that's going to happen fast. So immediately, people in that example would probably be turned off at that idea and be much more interested in something like this and learning how to make money renting out other people's properties. One example that I found, just because we haven't really gone over that many like relationship examples, there's an ad I saw that had the angle, these are the 5 sentences you must tell your wife if she's threatening divorce, which is really, really powerful because you imagine 5 sentences. I could tell her that right now. I could figure out what these 5 sentences are, go find where my wife is, and hopefully that will mean she doesn't divorce me. It's something that seems very achievable. It seems within reach. It doesn't seem like this Herculean task that is just going to be, like I said, the light at the end of the tunnel. We want angles. We want things that people can feel like they can start doing immediately. That's just the era. That's just the nature of the time that we live in. People don't want to sit around waiting for things to happen. Even if it is potentially a bigger, better thing, they would rather have something small and fast immediately. So having speed in your angle, in addition to originality and leverage authority, is absolutely crucial. These last two, all of them are important, but I would say these last two things, ease and newness, are kind of nice to haves. They're not necessarily hard requirements. I have 100% seen angles that are original, they have leverage authority, and they have speed, but they don't have ease and newness, and they still make a ton of money. Versus ones that have ease and newness, but they don't have the first 3 core fundamentals, and they usually are not going to make a ton of money. So if I was going to focus on 3, if I was just going to focus somewhere, I would really focus on those first that I've gone over. But ease is still very, very important. And what I mean by ease is that it should not feel uncomfortable. It should not feel like someone has to step that far outside of their comfort zone in order for them to get their desired result. Similar to speed, like I talked about, people would rather have something small, faster, rather than something big, but have it be at the end of the tunnel. Most people would rather get a smaller result if it means they don't have to be uncomfortable, if it means that they don't have to change who they are or step outside of their comfort zone, rather than having a bigger, potentially better result that requires them to step outside of their comfort zone. Biggest example of this is the amount of make money from home, work from home, or remote job offers that have popped up, obviously, over the last 10, 20 years. Because it's comfortable to stay at home. Why would I want to go out and knock on doors and cold call people and get people yelling at my face and have to leave my comfortable couch with my pajamas if I can make a smaller amount of money working from home? Most people would rather make a smaller amount of money, but have it do it in the comfort of their home than have to go to a 9-to-5 or have to do something that just requires them to be a little uncomfortable, because most people are more comfortable at home, even if it is potentially a bigger, better result. So just like speed, we always want to have things happen fast, even if it means it's smaller and theoretically not as good. The same thing is true with ease and comfort zones. We want something that is relatively easy, that someone can do without making themselves too uncomfortable, rather than having something that is uncomfortable but potentially is a bigger, better result. And ideally, a lot of the things I've already gone over, the angle that we're talking about should sound like it's doing a lot of the hard work for them. So for example, the Airbnb example, if the angle of, did you know you can make money renting out other people's properties on Airbnb, I already don't feel like that's going to be that difficult. It sounds like it's very well within my comfort zone because I'm not having to go out and buy a property. I'm just going out and, from the sounds of it, finding someone else's property and putting it on Airbnb. That doesn't sound that uncomfortable. Same with the idea of making money on YouTube without making videos, or without creating your own channel. That sounds pretty easy. If I don't have to create the videos myself, if I don't have to be the dancing influencer and that has to waste months and months of time building up a channel and an audience from scratch, that to me is something that I would be a lot more excited in doing, because it means that the angle, the platform of other people's properties in Airbnb or YouTube, it sounds like it's doing a lot of the hard work that I thought would be involved for me. Some other examples, there's a fantastic one that I've seen, also in the weight loss space. Did you know that you can lose weight overnight just by changing the way you sleep? This is probably the easiest thing that someone could perceive, because if you can lose weight while you sleep, all I have to do is maybe put on a mask or put on something that works overnight, and that's obviously very well within my comfort zone. It doesn't sound like I have to change that much about my life or about my daily schedule in order to reap the benefits of it. Another great one that I've seen that has been catching in popularity just with TikTok is, here's how you can double your e-commerce business by having TikTok creators promote your product for you. So the implication here is that I don't need to go out and learn some crazy new marketing strategy. I don't have to go out and risk any of my marketing dollars and step outside of my comfort zone. Instead, these TikTok creators are going to do the hard work for me. That's what I was talking about with having the angle do the stepping outside of the comfort zone. Instead of me doing it, these TikTok creators are going to step outside of their comfort zone. They're going to be the ones that are putting their face, making all these crazy videos trying to get attention, but they're going to be sending me sales. That, to a lot of people, is a lot more comfortable, and it's a lot easier in their head to see themselves doing it. So in an ideal world, your angle is going to not have to require someone to step outside of their comfort zone. And like I was talking about before, this is not a requirement. There's plenty of offers that have made 8 figures, 9 figures that do actually require people to step outside of their comfort zones. So it's not a requirement to have a really, really great angle, but in an ideal world, it's something that does exist, that it doesn't require you to make an uncomfortable change that large inside of your life to get the benefits. And last but not least is newness. This is different from originality. The really only difference is just the fact that our angle sounds kind of like breaking news. It sounds like something that people are hearing about for the very first time, because there is an implicit benefit of being one of the first people to do something. Most people like the idea of being the person who can tell their friends about some funny video that they saw, and they're the one that kind of shared the news about it for the first time. Or the person that's sharing the news about some crazy new tech product or some crazy news story, whatever it might happen to be. That is the benefit of newness. A strong angle, like we've already went over, it's going to be a breath of fresh air. It's going to be the promise of the grass is greener over on this side. And that's the benefit of having something that is new. A really easy way that you can infuse this into any angle without changing anything about it, and I love doing this, I start so many of my ads and so much of my marketing with this, is literally just starting your angle with, did you know? Did you know that you can make money on Airbnb using other people's properties? That sounds like a new idea, because I'm telling someone a fact that they have not heard before. I'm giving it to them kind of in the form of breaking news. And some people have do that. I've seen some angles literally will start with, hey, big news. And it's the same idea. It sounds new, it sounds fresh, it sounds exciting. Another one that I like is, most people don't know. Most people don't know that one of the best ways to make money in the stock market is XYZ. It sounds new, sounds fresh, it sounds recent, because the implication is a lot of people have not heard about this yet. You're one of the lucky few that is hearing about this new news for the first time. So these are the 5 components in Olson: originality, leveraged authority, speed, ease, and newness. The templates, so these are 2 very basic templates that you can plug and play with your offer to hopefully start brainstorming with. And that's the most important thing. This is not going to be the sort of thing that you just do and finish in 5 minutes. It's probably going to be the sort of thing that you're going to work on for like 30, 45 minutes and still be a little frustrated. You're still going to be like, I feel like it could be a little better. But that's the place you want to be, because like I've talked about, if you get this right, if you have an angle that at minimum has O, L, and S, and potentially has all 5 of these things, you're going to have pretty much the rest of your marketing already done for you. You don't really have to be that good a copywriter. You don't need to be a crazy media buyer, a crazy advertiser. So much of the process is already going to be done for you. So these templates are literally just designed to hopefully help you start brainstorming, but 100% you should be asking yourself a lot of the questions that I've already gone over in this training to hopefully help further your understanding. The first one that a ton of my ads, a ton of my offers, they follow this concept is, did you know that you can achieve reasonable goals, something that is within their reach, with leveraged authority, some other authority figure or organization, without something that's outside their comfort zone, without making videos, without exercising whatever it is that they don't want to do that's outside their comfort zone, in as little as a short timeline. So you can see this incorporates all 5 of the benefits, all 5 of the key components that we've already gone over that make an incredibly strong angle. And obviously this is something that I do all the time. It's a very It's a proven template that has worked really well for me in a lot of different industries. Same thing, kind of just reworded. A lot of people don't know this, but you can actually achieve reasonable goal in as little as short timeline without something that's outside of your comfort zone by using leveraged authority. It's true. You can see, again, same exact format. We're kind of rearranging the order of different things. I would really encourage you to, if you can, take out a piece of paper, open up a fresh Google Doc, try and figure out all of the different ways that you can use these templates and all of these different components of Olson, of originality, leverage authority, speed, ease, and newness. Figure out something new that you can position your offer with that's going to make it that much better. Beyond just using these templates, what you should ultimately be working towards is not relying too much on a template, but ultimately having something new, brand new, that you can formulate on your own. Like I talked about before, the importance of these things are in order. So it's more important to be original and to have leveraged authority than it is to be easy and new. Ideally, you want to have all 5, but if you can only have some, if you're really struggling with it, really try and go for just OLS, original, leveraged authority, and speed. And what I recommend doing, you can do this on a piece of paper, you can do it on a Google Doc, as you brainstorm different angles, try and evaluate them for each aspect of Olson. So for originality, grade yourself on a level of 1 to 3, where 3 is obviously the best. This perfectly explains that this is an original thing, and 1 being obviously this doesn't, and it doesn't have this component at all. If you can be 3 out of 3 in all 5 components, you are probably going to print tens of millions of dollars. I know that's been the case for me, many of the clients that I've worked with and helped with this. But obviously, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's probably not going to be perfect the first few times that you do this. But as long as you can get pretty good, as long as you can have 2 and 3 scale for O, L, and S, 100% you're going to be ahead of most competitors that I see